Hi everyone, Tracy DW here. For me, there has always been two learning journeys. The first is the one that you, as my co-listeners and learners, know all too well as you accompany me every 2 weeks on my journey of historical inquiry about the British Empire and Britain's colonial past. The second learning journey is the one that encourages me to continually reflect and evaluate on the progress of stories to be told. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to use this episode to do just that. To take stock and also ask and think about the answers to some extent about the question, so what's next? Both these learning journeys form two halves of the same coin. One side being the educationalist who is passionate about history and loves speaking, reading and writing. One who loves to share what I've learnt, modelling the process of lifelong learning to inspire others to do the same. And the other side of the coin is that of an emerging authority gaining recognition on a specific area of learning and an entrepreneur and business owner trying to market their resources within a niche area. This evaluation, or taking stock, is what I often do in the light of certain events or milestones. In this case, the attendance at my first ever podcast expo and hosting my first ever bookstall event. Recently, I was fortunate enough to be selected for a free 2-day pass to attend the podcast show held at the Business Design Centre in London. I attended a range of forums that covered everything from what was essential to my next steps in podcast development, how to build my brand, increase my target audience size, approaches to help monetization, and growing trends in both demographics and technology that could inform best practices. Exhibitors ranged from those who could support you in planning and launching your first episode to providing top tips on the use of state-of-the-art software and hardware for best sound quality and performance. Content that is good quality, meaningful, and hits its target audience always has the potential to make more than just downloads. It has the potential to be monetized, and you could reap modest but consistent financial rewards. But as I walked around the stands that featured global and not so famous brands, I had mixed feelings about the current state of the podcast industry and wondered whether it would still be able to retain its authenticity as an art form and medium as individual content creators such as myself continue to compete for a share of the audience and ultimately a slice of the revenue, with big corporations who already have a huge audience, sizable budgets, and celebrity backing. I then began to think about the dilemma about how to balance out being loyal to your listeners, but being able to monetize your content without selling out and compromising on quality. It was my very first real experience of a podcast expo, coming into physical contact with others, and although there were so many exhibitors and a vast array of topics being discussed, it was an unusual feeling of having so much attention paid to you, but still feeling, at times, relatively ignored. So it's important to attend these things with a sense of purpose, having intent and knowing what you want. To be able to walk out in some sort of changed state that is different from the one that you had when you walked in. I had looked at the schedule beforehand and had planned my time based on what talks and topics were available and what I felt would help to alter or shift my expectations and perspective. I decided to pay less attention to celebrity podcasts and more attention to those ordinary people with ordinary occupations who have had extraordinary success in improving their content, growing their audiences, and increasing their downloads. I felt that they certainly empathised with me as an individual, and I thought that their suggestions and advice really resonated with me. I'd made the decision for a while that when it was time to organise a face-to-face event, I wanted my first one to take place in my hometown, and my wish was granted. I debuted recently with a bookstall at the second annual Black Bookcase event, but it didn't just take place in my hometown. The venue was actually the location of my former sixth form college. Returning back home as a school leader to showcase in your old school had great significance for me, and I felt that I had come full circle. I felt like it was a full circle moment. To be really honest, I was scheduling social media posts less often over the last few months, and once I'd made the decision to do the bookstall and show up at a real event, I felt quite refreshed in taking stories to be told offline and placing it online through face-to-face meetings with my first real physical customers. In participating in the Black Bookcase event, I was able to engage and network with other authors, radio and podcast producers who were all looking for people to interview for their shows. And I got to introduce my work to more of my target audience. But what was just as important was seeing the sum total of my work over the last 3 years on display and all the positive support that it received from friends, loved ones, and new acquaintances. Both the podcast show and my first bookstall event have not only boosted my confidence but also helped me to place things in perspective and evaluate all those actions that I have had on my to-do list. It has helped me to prioritise between busy tasks and productive ones. Tasks that I could probably outsource and tasks that are a part of my skill set that only I can do. They've certainly shown me that there are infinite opportunities for expansion and growth with stories to be told, and with a strategic plan in place, it definitely gives me hope for the future. After a period of nearly 3 years, I have published 8 story titles, more than 70 podcast episodes, launched a website, and I'm continuing to grow my email list and my listenership. So what's next? I could feature and cross-promote other people's podcasts which are similar to mine and vice versa to grow my audience. I could do more face-to-face events and interviews to promote stories to be told. I could put out more content or change or add another format such as video and interview others and have guests as part of my format. But amidst all the buzz of activity that's going on in my head, I'll never forget to ask you, my listeners and co-learners, what topics you would like to see covered in my podcasts, where you would like me to pop up and share my stories, and what you would like to see on the website as more content is planned for the platform. So, whether you've just discovered me or have accompanied me on my journey from the very first episode, I not only want to say a huge thank you to all of you, all my listeners and co-learners, but also extend an invitation to help me to determine which direction the learning journey will take, what it will look like, how it will grow, and most importantly, how it can continue to meet your needs and interests. I take this opportunity to ask you the question. So, what's next? If you liked this podcast, then stay on this listening platform and check out my other biographical podcast episodes related to this one, such as Spread the Word, Our Brand Story, and A Moment That Changed My Life from the first season, and Spotlight on the Learning Journey, Our Cover Story, and Let's Set the Record Straight from the second season. And don't forget what I call the heart and soul of the Stories to be Told movement, my stories or poetic narratives. Once again, let's do the roll call. Caribbean Wind, Caribbean Rush, Knights at the Round Table, the Berlin Conference 1884, and Gone with the Wind, Macmillan's Speech for Change. They are all available on the website in both Kindle and paperback formats. And also, yes, the publication of the latest 4 titles. If you want to find out more, just visit storiestobetold.com and check out the learning platform for The Journey's End, Giving Back Hong Kong, Bite from the Big Apple, A Story for New York, Hope for Zimbabwe, Arise the Phoenix, and A Story for South Africa. Now, my newsletter in June will be out very soon with a special promotion. Now, I did this promotion at the Black Bookcase event and it was so successful I am thinking about doing it again, where I sold all my stories for £5. And it ran at the bookstall and I ran it for a limited time on the website, just from the 3rd to the 6th of June. But as it's the Windrush Generation celebrations this June, I'm thinking of extending that offer. So you're going to be seeing something on the website very, very soon. And as I just mentioned, the Windrush Generation, as our June promotion, it's a copy of the very first publication, my very first publication, the last story that I wrote for the Stories to be Told series, but it was the very first story that I published, Caribbean Wind, in celebration of the Windrush Generation. And you can listen to the podcast episode HM Windrush, A Different Perspective, which was inspired from the story, and also the podcast episodes The Story So Far from the very first season. And if you'd like to purchase a copy of Caribbean Wind, the link is also in the show notes. And that is if you don't want to wait for the special promotion. Now, if you're not a part of the email list, visit Stories to be Told and sign up, where you can opt in and receive your free samples of my first 4 titles. Now remember, this is the only way to enter the draw for a chance to win one of my monthly giveaways. And finally, remember that you can also send me an audio message on the SpeakPipe link, which is also in the show notes. So don't be a stranger. I've asked the question, so what's next? Don't be shy, give me a shout, and let me know what your thoughts and ideas are. Feel free to like, follow and share me on social media when you visit the website. Just click onto whichever social media link you would like to follow me on. And as always, it is a pleasure and a privilege to continue to share my learning journey with you in this podcast series, and I encourage you to either begin or continue your own. History is a matter of fact or perspective. I'm Tracy DW, and this is a Stories to be Told podcast. Stay safe, stay well, stay blessed. Thanks so much for listening. and I'll see you on the next page.